Nurture and support. Nurture and support. This is a podcast theme song. And it's really short.
Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nurture and Support, a recommendation podcast sharing all the awesome since 2013. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And I'm at Karmic9, Mel on Twitter. Or the other way around. Something like that.
However it works.
Y'all know the drill by now.
Indeed. Episode 120, that's like a lot.
It is. I have to look it up every time now because I can't keep track of the numbers. I can't count that high.
Well, I'm highly enthusiastic to get right into my recommendation because I'm a little bit obsessed with it, and I bet you might be able to guess what I'm going to recommend, maybe or maybe not. I don't know how much you've been kind of active on Twitter here recently, but there has been one non-Alice Cooper related theme that has emerged with a lot of volume over the past 2-3 weeks.
Oh, yes. that thing.
That
okay.
Thing. So I'm going to be yes. So for the 4 people out there, and I think Mel may be one of them, we'll find out in a second, who are not playing PokemonGO, allow me to recommend you rush to your app store of choice and you download it, and you begin to put your life at risk because you're paying too much attention to your phone. You destroy your data plan. You'll kill your battery, but you'll have a lot of fun. So I highly recommend it. So my hunch is you have no great enthusiasm for PokemonGO.
I downloaded it and I caught 2 Pokemon, but there don't seem to be very many in my area. You know, I live out in the country, and sometimes it's not really it's frowned upon to crawl over people's fences and into their pastures and things. People will shoot you out here. So I've had trouble easily finding any Pokemon, though I will say shortly after this started, I saw a large conglomeration of young people on my road blocking the 1-lane old ancient bridge that is the only way in or out of my area during rush hour in the morning. And I'm old and cranky, and I wanted to beat them to death, but I didn't, so I let them play.
So there's that. There are some societal issues with the game, which we can get into in a little bit. But for those of you not familiar, I'm just amazed by this because it is really, in terms of bringing together augmented reality, geolocation, questing, strategy, it's just a wonderful combination of things. Unfortunately, there are certain aspects of the game that also result in bad behavior, but it has less to do with the game and more to do with the people playing the game. But we can talk a little bit more about that too. But the basic premise, if you're not familiar, is you go back to the good old days of these are the traditional, old school, original Pokemon. As time went by, to make more money, they came up with new generations and goofier things. But this is like the original group. And so if you had some experience with that at the time, which I did, not as an active collector myself, but I circled around Pokemon cards at the time. They were hard to get. They would sell out. You'd want to get them all the different kinds of Pokemon that are out there, and they're cute, and there's clever names, and there are stages where they evolve. And the premise was it was a card-based game where the storyline was, as a young trainer, you would go out into the wild, find these Pokemon, capture them with your Pokeball, throw a Pokeball and capture them, and then later have them battle each other. And so PokemonGO, what's that?
That sounds odd. We're kidnapping cute creatures and then forcing them to fight.
Well, I guess you could look at it that way. But there are touching moments when Ash captures Pikachu. Pikachu could evolve to a stronger form than Pikachu, but Ash, there was such a bond between Pikachu and Ash that he was never willing to try and evolve Pikachu into Raichu and those types of things.
Really?
So it's like a touching story.
He may have been afraid Pikachu would kill him in his sleep.
Yeah, because personality changes and maybe it doesn't work out, and this thing can shoot lightning bolts and all that. But it does, I say, to get full enjoyment out of the game, you're well served if you move around a bit. So in your circumstance there, with you're primarily in a rural area and it's a pretty set path from A to B, my guess is you're not going to run across a whole lot of PokeStops. We'll talk about those in a moment, or a decent amount of Pokemon in the wild for you to get, but not maybe a ton. But this game takes that premise and basically breathes life into it perfectly. You fire it up on your phone, begin to drain your battery, kill your data, all that good stuff. But you'll begin to come across various Pokemon that you can kind of flick on the screen and throw a Pokeball and try and catch. The backbone for this, I can't get I'm horrible with the pronunciation, as we already know, but I think it's Niantic is the actual production company that did it. They did a game previously called Ingress, and I desperately wanted to love Ingress. It's got a lot of the same structuring to it in that there are kind of waypoints. You pick one of two teams. You can kind of try and it's kind of a capture the flag type of idea. You could go to different locations, pull your phone out, and potentially gather items and all those types of things. And so PokemonGO Ingress has been around for a while and has developed quite a few of these waypoints and geographical locations. And so those basically became the PokeStops in the new game. And a PokeStop is a place in PokemonGO where you get close to it. It's like a tower. It changes shape. You spin a wheel kind of comes up. You spin it, and you can get items like Pokeballs or potions or all these types of things. And so it's a location. You can also attach a lure to the PokeStop, which will draw Pokemon to the PokeStop. And PokeStops that have a lure attached to them, they're like little flower petals or confetti coming down from the PokeStop that indicates this is a PokeStop with an active lure. This has also been a handy tool for the muggers of the world who have picked some PokeStops that are in maybe somewhat obscure places, attach a lure, and then you get that gang of kids with their noses in their phone walking down the alley to go to the PokeStop, and all of a sudden things aren't so good. So watch out for that, kids. Keep an eye on, know where your PokeStops are. Inexplicably in my area, there's a cemetery. As I drive to work off a main intersection, I pass a very large cemetery. It's a cemetery that had the honor of being parked on by about 600 Donald Trump supporters and Donald Trump detractors when he spoke at our airport one time. And a lot of damage occurred to that, which is unfortunate. But this poor cemetery not only had that to deal with, but now it is the home to what has to be 10 or 12 PokeStops are just littering this cemetery. And so that they had to come from Ingress somehow, but I'm not really sure why. So they do show up in some strange places, and I think what you're going to see is them continuing to work to correct it, because there are PokeStops at the 9/11 Memorial, and there are things going on in the Holocaust Museum there too. And there are certain places where, as awesome as I truly enjoy playing this game, there's probably a few environments that it's a good time to put your phone in the pocket and move along.
Yeah.
But it's you'll get people that will kind of push, say, well, the most important thing is this game gets people up and out and walking around, which it does, because part of the idea is you can also get eggs and incubate the eggs, and the way you incubate an egg is kind of keeping track of how much distance you walk. So you have to walk 10 kilometers to incubate one kind of egg, 5 another, 2 another, and you can't just be clever and turn your PokemonGO on in your car, and it uses GPS.
Step counter.
Not that I try. It uses GPS and speed, so that basically if you're operating above a certain speed, it's going to assume you're not actually mobile, and you're not going to get credit for that distance covered. So a lot of good thought went into it. There is the walking around part. That's good. Highly encourage people to use judgment on where they're walking around in terms of those things. The interface is pretty cool, because it's kind of a mashup of these waypoints from Ingress and then a kind of simplified Google Maps overlay, so that it's showing all the streets, and building structures are kind of gray outlines. They're not three-dimensional, but you can kind of see the foundations of all the buildings. Pretty accurate. You'll find Pokemon inside buildings, outside buildings, and all that. So it's pretty cool. When you actually come across one, you've got a couple options. This is where it does a great job involving augmented reality. When one shows up, you can actually flip it over to your camera, and there's the Pokemon, and you can, if you cleverly position it, you can put it in somebody's hand or set it on a desk or do these types of things and come up with some kind of clever and cute shots to do that. But it really outs you as a Pokemon Go player because you're there kind of jousting with your camera to get the right position. So if you're trying to maybe playing the game a little more on the down low, it's a toggle switch. You can shut the augmented reality off, and it just basically becomes an animated green background, a little bit of forest in the background, and the Pokemon shows up centered on the screen. You don't have to move your phone around to kind of center it. And so you can somewhat on the sly, kind of go ahead and do the capturing that way.
I think that saves your battery too, doesn't it?
It does.
You turn off, yeah.
And so it's a fun thing. I do believe they've done some things geographically that you will see certain types of Pokemon in different parts of the country more heavily than others.
Are there any cow Pokemon? Because I should have lots of those.
Yeah, you should know. There aren't, not that I'm aware of. They're not cows. There's rats. Trying to think what would be a good Texas. There's a Star U. So you got that. But
I don't even know what 2 Pokemon I managed to catch. One of them was the freebie that you get at the beginning, and then I caught one at home.
I would a Weedle would be a good guess. It's kind of a caterpillar-looking thing with a horn on the top.
I think that might be it.
They're pretty prevalent. There's all kinds of strategy in terms of collecting them and trading them in and building up and evolving them. So you can kind of just play that part. If you're just kind of going around on if your interest is, I just want to try and get them all, you can do that. If you want to do the head-to-head battles, you can do those. You can find there are gyms. So you've got these PokeStops, but then there's also gyms you can go to and have your Pokemon battle. There are three teams. At some point you would define an allegiance to either a red, yellow, or red, yellow, or blue team. And they have different attributes to each, and different teams have ownerships of the gyms as they prevail. And so you get to kind of watch the gyms change hands from, that's a red gym, now it's a blue gym. And that goes back to the original Nintendo Pokemon for the Game Boy. There was a Pokemon Red, Pokemon Yellow, and Pokemon Blue game cartridges. And it's a kind of a callback to that. So there's like a little nostalgia stuff going on. It's pretty fun. It can be somewhat addictive. You gotta continue to exercise judgments that there's probably right and wrong times for you to try and be doing this. You see all the stories of people running off cliffs, walking into lakes, crashing into walls,
finding dead bodies.
Yeah, which is not directly a fault of the app.
No, until people start killing people and then putting lures next to them so that people find the dead body while they're hunting for Pokemon, so you could traumatize your children.
There's that. That's true.
Which
so maybe
will probably happen.
Undoubtedly. We see these things every once in a while, different fads, different things that just kind of catch on, and there's this huge rush of many people wanting to do it. I think there's a lot of kind of cool things about this that kind of justify it, that make it kind of an interesting thing to participate in. But it's as interesting to me culturally as it is as a game, to just kind of see the ridiculous adoption. To have within Hillary Clinton actually got briefed on Pokemon Go and came forward with Pokemon Go to the polls as kind of a theme, and had people out in front of, and we actually saw, we were in Washington D.C. recently, and coming out of one of the metro stops, there was one of these folks trying to register voters because they were right by a PokeStop. And so they're doing that.
I retweeted something today along the same lines. There were people out with Pokeball, buttons, and we're getting people to register to vote, handing out Pokeball buttons. So there you go. Hey, if it gets people to the polls.
Good, it's providing. But it is sad. You can, if you're mobile in a car, not driving, allow me to stress, as a passenger in a car, you got a shot sometimes. You're not going to be able to kind of do the interaction with a PokeStop you'd like to because you're going by them too fast. But you can pick up Pokemon on the road. a little bit. You got to be a little bit clever about it. But so it's, as a passenger, allow me to stress one more time, as a passenger in a car, that's worthwhile proposition. Don't recommend, if texting while driving is a risk, PokeGoing while driving is insanity. I highly discourage that.
Yeah.
But it's fun if you're out and about at all. If there's chances for you, I'm going to the grocery store. You're going to see them about anywhere. You're going to the grocery store. Some of those things, it's fine. You're not going to be able to hide you're playing it, so you want to probably kind of consider that whether you're wanting to go forward. I'm sure there's a mild creep factor. I'm probably one of the older Pokemon Go players out there, but I can live with it. So,
Well, I mean, everybody's playing, even in my small area. I think the second day that it was out, I had been telling people in the office about it, and our 74-year-old owner came in, and he had been at the AT&T store upgrading his phone and was complaining about all of the kids in there, because apparently it was either a gym or a PokeStop, and it was being bombarded by people coming in and going out and wandering around the store and getting in the way. And so somebody there had to explain to him what was happening. So he even knew about it on the second day. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty it's a remarkable thing, and it's, in that quest to find a good kind of combination of all the services on a phone, the geolocation, the camera, the ability to augment reality, to create some level of kind of community connectivity. It's a pretty brilliant execution, and it runs on the rail of Ingress, but I think Ingress was much more. I mean, you were still gathering something much more of a conflict oriented. There were teams battling for control, capture the flag type of stuff, where this has that element to it, but it also has just more of the kind of scavenger hunt kind of flavor to it and a little bit of strategy. So there's lots of different kind of interesting touch points on it. So I think it's just good fun. It's good fun where you should use some judgment. Highly recommend that. But I think it's worth playing.
Yeah.
So that will be my recommendation. And the other really fun thing is you can name your Pokemon. So they have all the names of the very Pikachu, Jigglypuff, Clefairy, all that good stuff. But you can then go in after you capture them and change their names. And there's a lot of folks going out there doing themes. And of course, the theme I chose to do is Game of Thrones. And so I'll see what I can do about doing a couple screenshots, because I have named all of my Pokemon as Games of Thrones characters, top to bottom at this point in time. So I'll see if I can get a couple screenshots, and we can maybe throw that in the blog post so you can see where I ended up on a few of those. But so it's a good time. So I recommend it. That's my recommendation for this week.
Yeah, I hope as it goes on a little bit more and they start evening out some of that they start servicing some of those underserved areas like my area, and make it a little bit easier, because it would be a really cool thing for rural kids to be able to do, because they don't have access to a lot of the city stuff. And right now, at least in my area, everything is basically congregated in the city. There is one PokeStop out here, and it's several miles from my house, and it is the only one for a very long distance. So it would be really cool if they could start putting maybe a little bit more of that out in rural areas, because this would be great for kids who don't have as much interactivity, don't have the ability to go to the neighbor's house and play with their kids, and give them a way to bond with other people that way. So I hope all that evens out as they get everything going.
I think it will, because whether it's temporary Pokestops, because they've talked about maybe from promotional, a car dealership might want to have a Pokestop for a weekend when they have a sale, but they don't necessarily want it all the time. Some of that, it would be good to see it spread out. There's definitely, I'm here in Central Illinois, in a mid-sized city. There's a decent number. Spent several days in Washington, D.C. last week. Significantly more Pokestops, and in fact had the best dinner of my life, as the hotel sat directly in between two Pokestops with active lures attached to them. So I was able to sit and enjoy a good meal and capture a gazillion Pokemon. So it's pretty awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I've been meaning to boot mine back up and try it. I have a Pidgey and a Caterpie. That's what I have. So I don't think I'm going to be winning any battles anytime soon.
But you can name them.
If I can figure out how to name them, I'll see. I have to mess with that app more.
Yeah, click on any of the characters, and you'll see a little pencil by their name, and you click on the pencil, and then you can type the name over. So.
Okay. Yeah, my screens have looked different than a lot of the screenshots I see up on Twitter. So I don't know if those are off of Android or if I'm just not doing something right. Probably I'm not doing something right. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 ways on that. Just last one on that is that there's actually built into the app a camera button when you see it, and you can do that. But then also you can do a screen grab that when you're actually kind of live doing it. So that may be why they look different. But a couple ways. Yeah, I would love to see a from the heart of Texas Pokemon shot sometime.
Yeah. You do actually, there's been a couple things in the news of people taking shots at kids, which is amazing to me that some of these people are out in the hours that they're out when they would normally be sleeping. And so it's dangerous. But out where I live, people walking around in the middle of the night, you will get shot. I'm just telling you, because you're not supposed to be there. You'll get hurt. So I'm not wandering around, and I got some neighbors I wouldn't wander too close to anyway. But that's cool. I've been telling myself I was going to get into that more and see what everybody was getting on about. But I believe the servers were down today because I believe China came online. So.
Oh yeah. So that would explain. Yeah, and that has been the unprecedented adoption and interest in this game. I think they scaled it well, but Ingress never had the volume of users that this has, and so you get the servers down a lot. But I didn't know China went online today, but that's not going to help.
I think that's what I saw, and they were expecting problems. So, but yeah, I wanted to play Ingress, and I had the same problem. There was nothing out here. So I was like, I don't understand what is happening. So I stopped that pretty quickly. So cool. It really has been fun to see how it's taken over everybody. It's just been amazing. It's weird. I've had more conversations with kids in the last week because y'all know how good I am with children. But kids that have come into my work who you can always talk to anybody about Pokemon right now. So that draws a bunch of them out who wouldn't normally talk to people. So it's been pretty cool. I like it. So I'll have to try to play more though. So while you're out there getting all this exercise chasing Pokemon, I have a recipe this week. I don't know that I've ever done just a plain recipe before, but this is actually one of my favorite recipes. I've been making it pretty much quite a bit for about the last month, and it might sound gross, but it is Cabbage Hashbrowns. So if any of you have looked into low carb type recipes, this might be something that you've possibly come across. I haven't seen a whole lot of recipes for it online, but it's basically trying to make hash browns out of cabbage instead of out of potatoes. We have a lot of I've been looking at a lot of low carb stuff lately because I have a diabetic brother who we're trying to get to eat better. So I found this recipe and I actually really like it, and I make it all the time now. So it basically consists of shredded cabbage, some onion, 1 egg, and salt and pepper, or I use seasoned salt, and a little bit of cheese. Now you can use any kind of cheese that you want, from Parmesan to cheddar. I mix up with whatever I have. I've used pepper jack and straight Parmesan and some sharp cheddar, and I like it with all of them. And then you basically mix all of that up. So the easiest way to do it is to buy a bag of shredded cabbage at the store that you would use to make coleslaw, and you use a cup of cabbage. I use 2 green onions, or you can use depending on how much onion you like, anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 cup of chopped onion, or I just use 2 green onions. 1 egg. You have to be careful how much egg you put in this, or it'll end up tasting too eggy. The egg and the cheese are mainly there to try to help bind it together. So I like seasoned salt on my hash browns and tater tots. I like seasoned salt. So I put seasoned salt in mine instead of just salt and pepper. And then around a quarter of a cup of any kind of cheese that you want, and fry that in a pan in a couple tablespoons of oil. I prefer coconut oil. And you have to be careful that you fry them for, usually it's going to take about 5 minutes. And you want to get it pretty crispy on the bottom before you try to flip it, or it'll fall apart. So it looks, when you're done, it looks just like hash browns. Now, depending on how fresh your cabbage is, it may not smell like anything but cabbage when you open up that bag. But once it's cooked, it doesn't smell like cabbage. I have fooled people. They didn't think it was, they thought it was hash browns before they ate it. They didn't really think it was hash browns after they ate it, but it's not bad. They didn't not like it. They had no idea it was cabbage. Because after all of that cooks together, you can't tell that there's cabbage in there at all. So it's fun. I like to make people eat things they don't know they're eating because, I'm a vegetarian. That's what I do. But this mixture makes 2 patties. So that basically makes dinner for me. That's about all the cooking I want to do most days. And it only takes a few minutes. So about 5 minutes per side. It takes about 2 minutes flat. If you buy a bag of shredded cabbage, it takes maybe 2 minutes to mix that together. And so in 12 minutes, you have food. And for me, that's like a whole meal. But because I have egg for a little protein, you've got some cabbage for vegetables and some onions and some cheese. For me, that's it. So it's kind of become, about in the last month, my go-to fast dinner when I get home and I'm tired. And I really like it. The only place I've really found a recipe for this was in like a ketogenic cookbook. So this recipe actually works for any of the people on the weird diets that you may know. So it works for me as an ovo-lacto vegetarian. It's not going to work for a vegan, y'all, because they don't eat eggs or cheese. But for me, it works. Paleo, it's going to work. Keto, it's going to work. Any variety of low carb, I think it's going to work. So it's really pretty good. And I think y'all should try it because I've been telling everybody about it. And then I had to make some and took them to work one morning. And nobody knew I hadn't told them it was cabbage. And they didn't know it was cabbage. So it's really actually very good. So to me, the seasoned salt really helps to push the flavor for me over into kind of the hash brown type territory rather than just plain salt and pepper. It's good with just salt and pepper. I've made it that way, but I prefer the seasoned salt. And like I said, just be careful how much egg. If you're going to make this recipe, if you're going to make more, be careful of your egg. You might just add 1 egg at a time, even if you're going to double it and mix that in. And be careful of how much egg because it will move over into an omelet stage if you have too much egg in there. And you don't want that. You just want the egg as a binder to try to help hold it all together. It doesn't taste eggy if you have the right amount of egg in there. So it's Cabbage Hashbrowns. And they're good, y'all. I know they don't sound like it, but they are.
I like it because I continue to look for low carb alternatives, and I love hash browns, which are not carb friendly. They're delicious, no, but they're not carb friendly. Yeah. So something that might approximate some of the deliciousness and a plate appeal and all that of a hash brown, and it's cabbage, I think it's worth a shot. So it's kind of a ratio of 1 egg per cup of cabbage or less, right?
Yeah, you don't, and see, when they're talking about an egg, they're typically talking about a large egg that you would buy at the store. Now, what I use I have chickens. So I have homegrown eggs, but my eggs are from Bantam chickens, which don't lay the same large eggs that you're going to get at the store. So my eggs are like kind of a medium egg, and I only use 1. And I usually put just a touch more cheese to compensate because my eggs probably not quite as much. But I have, when I've tried to double it, used 2 of my smaller eggs, and I've had it get too eggy. So just be careful, add it 1 egg at a time, even if you're doubling the recipe to see how much you have. And just, like I said, it doesn't taste bad if it ends up having too much egg in it. It's perfectly fine. it's just not the intended texture that you're going for. It definitely tastes like you've got a lot of egg in there when you've got too much. So it's a fine line, but I'm a tater tot person personally. I love tater tots. So tater tots are bad for you, but this
But
is not quite so bad.
so can you make cabbage tots? Because
I've
I love
not
tater
tried.
tots too.
I've not tried. This basically satisfies that need for me. So I don't need to try to make tater tots out of it. This works. This works for all of that for me. So and I was really shocked. I made it kind of on a lark, because I had been. Have you seen that Death Star waffle iron?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I have the Death Star waffle iron. And I have unsuccessfully been trying to make potato hash browns in that waffle iron for quite a while, and I finally gave up. There's too many little, too much texture in that waffle iron, and my hash browns just aren't working in it. So I kind of gave up on that, and I'd given up on hash browns in a rage because I couldn't make Death Star hash browns. And then I came across this, and so now I'm making cabbage hash browns. I've meant to try it in the waffle iron, but I haven't done it yet. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. That'd be interesting, just because I've had mixed results with the waffle iron hash brown method. Sometimes, more times than not, they don't come out particularly well, and that's what they standard on Death Star. Although I would desperately like to get one of the Death Star waffle irons one day. But.
Yep. It's pretty cool, I'm not a waffle maker person. I'd never made a waffle at home. I've never owned a waffle iron. So it took some experimenting for me to be able to make a good Death Star waffle. And basically, by the time it gets done cooking, I'm not hungry anymore. It takes too long. So anyway.
Yeah, and the nice thing on hash browns is they're portable, so you can kind of cook up a couple and take them with you as you're walking around looking for Pokemon. So there you go. Right. You eat healthy as you carefully seek Pokemon out in the real world.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, we'll slide on into social media recommendations. This week, I'm going to recommend her name on Twitter is Shea, S-H-E-Y, S-H-E-A, Shea. Shea My Name is her Twitter name, which is clever, I think. Her actual handle is at SHEANN828. So Shean828. Just a good follow. She's funny. She appears to be Pokemon friendly, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. We've seen a lot of polarization in that camp. But she's clever, fun, interactive. And so that's the kind of people I like to recommend. So that's what I'm recommending this week.
Cool. Well, shock of shock, y'all. I have a social media recommendation this week. And I thought of Kelly, actually, when I came across this account. And I've been careful because I came across it the other day. I haven't been retweeting it because I wanted him to be surprised.
Okay.
It's Fake Theme Park. I don't know if you've come across this one yet.
I have not, but it sounds awesome.
Okay. Its Twitter handle is at Fake Theme Park. They also have a Facebook page under Fake Theme Park. Earlier this month, they came out with a video that's entitled "I'm a Theme Park Princess," and it's quite entertaining. I'll put a link up to it. You just really kind of have to watch it. It's about a girl who fails at every job she gets until she gets a job as a theme park princess. So it's actually pretty cute. They have very entertaining, dark side of Disney type tweets. Let's see. Here's one. Yes, next year we're closing that thing you love to open something that sounds horrible. So I thought of Kelly when I saw this account because it's full of things kind of like that. Tips and tricks as to how to navigate the park best, because everything's closed or doesn't work. Things like that. So at Fake Theme Park on Twitter and on Facebook. And I'll put a link up to the video because it's entertaining.
That's what Twitter was made for things like that. That sounds just amazing. Cool. Excellent. No, and I had not heard or seen that at all. And very wise of you not to retweet it, because that could have been my recommendation.
I knew you'd jump on it, so I had to save it. Since I finally had a social media, I had to save it and keep it to myself.
Well, folks, if he were a waffle iron, he'd be a Jar Jar Binks waffle iron. We're going to hand it over to Matt, who's going to give you all the information on how you can connect to Nurture and Support on Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, etc. And he'll give you all those details. And I have nothing else. I'd just like to say thanks for listening.
We'll be back the week after next.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP@gmail.com, or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter.
Nurturing and supporting Targeted.